Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Okay, here's the deal. I am very excited about this podcast that we are about to do. I have a couple of episodes coming up with one of my friends. And here's the thing. We've already been sitting here talking about just like random stuff because we can't stop talking because there's so many things we like to talk about. And we very much get each other on a deep level, although we are very different. We're also very similar. It's a great concoction. But you guys, I have Jenna Zent here with me. Welcome.
Thank you. I know at one point we were like, we should just hit record and stop talking and we're talk on the microphones.
I know. It's literally already been like a half hour. So I'm very excited to have her on here for multiple reasons. Some of you guys will remember we had her here. We had her on this show before.
Oh, yeah.
And do you remember what we were talking about? I think
Fun and then
Yes.
intentionality, I think.
Yes. Yeah. We got so many people who emailed in wishing you had a book. Being like, hey, where can I find resources on how to do this? I'm like, I don't know. Listen to the episode and try to make shit up.
You're like, go. I had probably like a dozen reach out for the questions for the specific. Anyways, I was like, I have to write these somewhere. So here you go.
Yeah. So you're really good at having fun and being intentional. But the last couple years, you've gone on a journey that has been really inspiring. Pretty much everything me and Justin do is built on two core values, honestly, that we try to keep in tension and in balance, which is compassion and empowerment. So everything is like learning how to be compassionate towards yourself, gentle, patient, kind, understand why you do what you do, like create a loving connection with yourself and with the world around you. But we've seen like in counseling, inner healing, transformation tracks, there's kind of two different veins. One is either empowerment, which is just fix your life by doing the right thing. And sometimes that can be hard for people who can't just push through. It's really good for the personalities that are good at just pushing through. But then you have the other form, which is like counselors that can be so compassionate, but they never give you a way out. So they might always empathize with how hard your life is, but they don't give you the practical tools to be empowered to actually step out. So we think transformation comes from compassion and empowerment. And
it was funny as you're saying that, I'm like learning. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm going to have to talk in a second. I'm not here just to learn. I'm like, that's so good. Let me take notes. I know you're supposed to be interviewing.
That's funny. But so as I've watched Jenna on this journey for the last, year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah. She has gone on a journey of empowerment that is beautiful and powerful and has seen her life change from making little changes, but being intentional about them and what they are and finding out how to make them work for her, not against her. And I think a lot of people, when they think about changing their life, they have resolutions and they feel overwhelmed and they always think, I'm going to have to do things I hate in order to get my life where I want it. And it just feels like a mountain that they can't do. And I have seen you approach it dramatically different, which is, what is it that will actually work for me? Not what is it I should be doing.
Yep.
And then also, what are the little things I can do that will make big impact? Which is just strategic. I work in business and I'm like, honestly, thinking through the little difference makers is one of the best things in anything you do in life, in relationships, in business, in finances, in your whole life. So I invited her on.
This is so good. I'm giggling. I'm like, oh, wait, I need to take notes again because you just explained my business more succinctly than I ever think.
You can like replay this and write a mission
I'm going to listen
statement.
to my own. Yeah. I'm like, okay, here's what I do now, guys. Thanks, Abby, for giving me words.
It's very, very true. And it's fun that I've gotten to watch the journey. And so when I see people who have found keys to life transformation, to hope, to enjoying life. And one of the things I love about your personality, this is a very long intro, but I'm doing it anyway, is you love enjoying life. You want, and those are the other episodes you've had on our podcast, is how to like enjoy life more. And so little changes have helped you enjoy life more instead of feeling like you have to get disciplined and serious about things to fix it all, which
so true.
most people avoid change because
that reason.
change looks painful.
Yeah.
And you have found a way to embrace change and then see it make your life more beautiful. So do you want to talk a little bit about like where you were at before you went on that journey, what the journey was like, and then we'll talk through some of the different areas that you've seen it impact you.
Yes. It was so hard to engage my thinking brain because I was just sitting back and be like, that's so good. Okay. So I think one of the things I more recently discovered was that before I went on this last 1.5 year journey, which it all kind of got instigated by like one of the lowest points of my life, which I think it's hilarious now when you read self-help books. It always starts that way. So I should have like been hopeful
for everyone.
Yeah. If you're at your lowest, there's good news coming.
Yeah.
So then it just made me like, so what happened was I owned a business that I started when my daughter was a newborn, like 1 month old. And then it the whole journey started when I was in the most pain, we realized that it was losing money. And if we went another quarter, we'd lose a lot of money and we couldn't afford it because we lived off of the profits. Like that was small business 101. And so then we had to quickly decide.
I just want to say really quick so people get a picture. The business was pretty successful for a long time.
We did, we had at the height of it, which I think was the year before, maybe we had like 18 employees. It bought both of our houses, our cars. It was like an Etsy shop that blew up. So it was really awesome. So then to have it,
and it was like how many years was
8 years?
Yeah.
8 years. So we made it. And then to have it shift so suddenly, it was like, I was at this pivot, this turning point of like, am I either going to reinvest? Like it was all handmade still. So it was kind of like a clear, like you're either going to get manufactured and put a lot of money and time and stay committed, almost like renew your vows.
Right.
Or you're going to stop doing this.
Yeah.
And I remember we were out to dinner with someone. They're like, you have permission to stop doing this.
Aww.
And I had this inner narrative because I'm naturally not responsible. Like before, at that point, I didn't. Now I know that I had told myself I was flaky, irresponsible, and lazy. So I had to stay committed.
Which I'm all laughing at because I'm like, you owned a business for 8 years,
but I had them run it. So I had all these excuses. I was just collecting evidence to like prove I was lazy, which is sad, but it was true. So then when someone said like it could be responsible to shut it down and that would be okay to like try to sell it, not shut it down, but like to step out and sell it. We ended up selling it. It felt like so much relief because I think I was my own biggest like prove yourself responsible to myself.
So true.
So then within weeks, we decided to it was like one of the roughest. Last Christmas was one of the roughest Christmases because then I had all these conversations with women who like a few of them, like I had my first original employee. Actually, you sent me. Her mom started working with us. All of her sisters, her dad worked with us, and like they had moved across the country, and I was their only job here. So then like and then we had other people too who had been there for like raised, nannied when we were out of town 6+ years. So having the conversations with them, like, and then to the narrative I'm thinking is my laziness and my irresponsibility is now the result of you not having a job. So like last
your
January,
inner critic was killing you.
So low. So already having these external circumstances and then just being so intense about how I saw the situation, like I just felt like crap.
I think a lot of people when businesses change like that feel the sense of failure.
Yeah. My brother's actually going something similar. So I felt grateful to have empathy, be like, I know what that's like. Don't drown yourself in really big statements against yourself.
It's very true.
So then realizing I had to what really started it all was that the plan was that we were scaling it all back, letting everybody go, moving it back into my house after I had been in like a 1,500 square foot office for years and years.
Right.
This was like 10 steps back,
Yes.
Such an ego hit, all the things. And then I was going to run it by myself for months.
Wow.
And I remember like almost feeling like this is a joke. And at that point, like I didn't have time management or like consistency dialed in where I was like, I remember like moving it with my employees and they were helping me. And I was both thinking like, this is probably
how
a
is
joke.
this going to happen?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. This is a bad plan. So in that time though, I realized like one of my friends, I always like having friends that, aren't just my cheerleaders, but will be truth tellers in the right moment. And my friend,
so important.
And I invite them in when I know that I'm having a bent towards not hearing it. So I was like, do you think I can do this? And she was like, do you know Holly? Oh, yeah, of course. Duh. And she was like, you're going to need to get skills you don't have if you're going to do this.
It sounds exactly how she would say it too.
But she's like, you can do it if you get those skills. And she's
a good truth teller.
She is in the kindest way. Yep. She's picked me up by made me look at my big girl pants I don't know, that metaphor broke down, but a couple times in my life.
Which is literally what I'm saying, that truth and compassion together is the perfect way to invite people into change.
Because if she had just felt sorry for me, I wouldn't have gone on the journey looking for new tools.
Or tried to make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah. I've been like,
which is unrealistic.
Totally. I'm like, no, we both know I don't currently as is. I do not have this.
Yeah.
So then anyways, went on, started listening to a bunch of books about like behavior change written by a ton of scientists. I literally listened to like 12 because I was sewing for hours and hours a day by myself. So it's comical now, which looked like such a hard season. Yes, because I was running the whole company. I was doing all the sewing, all the order placement, all the customer service, all the shipping in this little room.
Which here's the thing that I love about life. To you, this is worst case scenario 100%. For you to go backwards and be in your house and have like you're sitting for hours a day sewing. But then like not even understanding that this is going to be like a re-education for your entire 100%. Life. And you're actually just making money to be re-educated.
And the only thing that would get me to sit in a room for hours
exactly. a day. There's no way you would have listened that long.
In hindsight, I felt so, actually it was pretty cool. I felt pretty humbled. So I was like, what are you doing, God? Very close. Like it actually, I'd say that this ending and the pain that I felt got me out of a 10-year, kind of almost like drought of self-sufficiency with Jesus. Cause I was like, I cannot do this. And this is being by myself in my own thought is not fun right now. So got reconnected. So then like, actually it was cool. The word I felt like for that season was I needed to end well. Like I was really good at starting things. So everyone was asking me like, what's next then cause in the building the boat or like doing it myself, the point was to sell it.
Right.
So everyone's like, what's next after you sell it? And I was like, I don't have permission to dream yet. I like need to learn this lesson of ending which was cool. But I didn't realize at the same time getting this education in like behavior science
actually going to help you
so
in the
God's
next season.
Like, oh, you're so good at this, Jesus. You know, like the subtle timeline that I'm not catching, you know, or subplot.
Yeah, I love that.
So anyways, listened to all these things and it started with Atomic Habits, which is a really popular book. And it's all like starting small. But then I think the big key that I got out of that was it's so identity based. Like your behaviors are feedback loops for your thoughts. So it's like there's two types of habits. There's habitual thoughts and habitual behaviors, and they totally correlate. Where I had always just made goals of behavior change, not kind of like doing the prep work of what do I believe change, what is possible before I go after these things.
Right.
So I think the first month that I just did was knowing how loud and out of control my inner critic had gotten. I just started countering that. So I did probably a month of no habits other than editing my thought of like, I can't trust myself. This is a joke, where I'd just be like, whenever I catch it, I was like freaking dogmatic. I was like, nope, I'm on a journey to rebuild trust. I am learning and growing, becoming the kind of person that can tell myself what to do and do it. I have grace to grow. I'm not there yet, but I'm like, can partner with myself on this journey. So instead of
wow, those are great affirmations.
Yeah.
I'm on the journey to rebuild trust. Like that's so beautiful and powerful.
It was, and so essential. I think I actually was, if you had asked me before then, I would be like, declarations, they're cute for middle-aged Christian women. But I think the difference for me was I took what I was saying negative to myself and actually used that for my springboard for what I wanted to change rather than using someone else's, you know, like typed out or whatever. And then, realizing they needed to be true now. So instead of like, I can trust myself.
Yes.
I think someone taught me recently about bridge statements where I'm like, I'm learning, I'm becoming, I'm growing. I'm on a journey to whatever I wanted to. So I'm growing in trust for myself, or I'm learning to trust myself. That was true now. And I would just say it until I sparked a little bit of like emotion.
The feeling of, I could believe that.
Yeah. Like, okay, I'm not saying I can trust myself because I actually can't right now.
Which I think is where, you know, because I've been in this self-help world for forever and affirmations and all that stuff. And it's actually something I teach as well, is if you say an affirmation that your subconscious immediately says that's not true, the affirmation isn't going to help.
Yeah.
So if you say, I trust myself, and your subconscious is like, that's not true, it literally defeats the whole point, which is why what you said, bridge statements. I like one of the ones I use is every day I'm becoming more and more kind to myself. Every day I'm learning how to be more gracious, whatever it is. It's like that in action in the current moment. I'm learning, I'm growing. Like you said, it's really important that people understand that part of declaration helps you, because you need that emotional connection to start to change your beliefs. you have to feel like there's some spark of truth.
Yeah, it's not. I think I thought the magic was in the saying it, like a rosary or not a spell, but you have to say the words and then boom, it happens. Be like, no, you actually have to feel them and believe them for the boom to happen.
Yeah,
and then
that's great.
One of mine too is just kind of an overall umbrella. Like I give myself grace to grow because it kind of it like comes against my perfectionist thing that like tries to tackle. Be like, you're not there. You're like, oh, but there's grace to grow. That's okay. Like I'm learning, and then I also remember with my kids how like when they're learning to read, they have to first learn the alphabet, then recognize the sounds and the sound combos before they can ever read it. So then I'm like, I'm not shaming my 6-year-old when she reads the same sight book over and over again and gets one more sound like better. I remember that and celebrate. So then I was like dogmatic about like, I'm going to celebrate my own little 1% better as much as I would my kids. And then, so after doing that for a while, that's when I started doing
just
habits.
want to highlight that again. You're tangibly breaking through the steps of transformation. So the first one is noticing your inner beliefs, your inner critic, like what you actually feel about yourself because your behavior comes from your beliefs about yourself. Yep. Number 2, creating like some kind of statement that you can believe about disengaging that belief towards a new belief. Number 3, celebrating every little step and victory. Like, oh, I caught that thought. Even for me, like when I start catching my inner critic, just that feels like worth celebrating. Like, oh, I never caught that before. It used to just be normal. Oh, I caught that thought and I was able to say no. Oh, I caught that thought. And then I actually felt a spark of truth when I said this positive. Every single part of that is worth celebrating in those little steps. And I think one of the reasons you've been so good at this is even your ability to break down what you just said. I just wanted to highlight what you said because it was so good. That celebrating the little steps helps you do the little steps.
Well, actually, it was cool. One of the books I read, they did like the brain science behind it is that a habit is like a cue that triggers a solution. And then when you get the solution, you need the reward. So the celebrating is actually the reward that tells your brain, remember this path.
Yes.
This one's a good one. Do this one again. So then like, I think we have this thing as adults of like waiting till we get to a level to celebrate.
Accomplishment.
Yes. Like I need to get 50% there before I'll celebrate. But actually that's your biggest deflative motivation.
Because you'll stop wanting to do it.
Because you're like, you didn't do it yet? Yeah. So it's almost like backing up the grace to grow by actually celebrating your growth. Like even if it's 1%.
It's so true. You can trick your brain into wanting to do things by rewarding it.
100%.
That's what I do with my husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, you soft touched me on my back. That felt so great. And
literally
he wants to do it more.
It's so, I started, after I did it with myself, I do it with my kids. But it's cool because then if I ever feel silly doing it for myself, I remember how their face lights up and they believe it because I mean it. I'm not manipulating them. And then I like kind of hold myself to the same standard. Like your face needs to light up and believe it and bask in this moment because you did do something different. And that's like awesome.
So for a month you work on that and then
I was ready and I just started with like a little behavior of making my bed. So I should say too, to paint the picture of how bad it was. I was the friend that people would come over for play dates and I would literally spend like 2 hours cleaning. And these are true stories. And friends would come over and they'd be sitting on my couch and they'd be like, they'd like push me and they'd be like, I am so glad you didn't feel any pressure to clean up before I came over. I would be like, Cindy, you have no idea the blood, sweat, and tears.
This is clean.
Yes. And I'm like, I'm looking around being like, I don't even understand what she sees right now because this is my best effort. And then realizing, I can't tell her that because that'll show my hand as well. So I'm like, I know, I'm so comfortable. What was she talking about? So anyways, and then like that, I would say like always behind on dishes. Like we always had a pile of dishes. We always had laundry. Our room was a chaotic mess. We stopped putting furniture in our room because we realized it was just a pile for the things. It caught all the things. My vehicles would be overrun with all of the, like half of my closet would eventually be in the kids' closet. And it just got worse as they came along because I had more stuff and more people contributing. I remember like we had, because we had better finances, we had a cleaner too. So she would come once a week and we'd tease that it would last for the 30 minutes. And then we call it breaking the seal. When one of the kids would do something, and be like, it felt just hopeless. Like maintaining a peaceful, like a tidy environment felt hopeless.
Yes.
So then, but then we couldn't afford all of it. So then I had to, it was actually this perfect storm, like you said. When you look at it, you're like, I've lost everything. I lost my fancy lifestyle. I'm making these bills. But really like, so anyways, my first step was making my bed every day. Then as I did that, and then leaning into being proud.
Why that? Why is that the one that you started with?
Because I knew that if I could get a little more peace in my external environment, one, I could lean into feeling proud of myself like I was doing internally with my thoughts, but then like it would overflow in other ways. And I actually needed my environment to be a little more peaceful, especially with the inner storm of all the uncertainty. I was like, what can I not have be as chaotic? What can I control the chaos in, you know?
I want to pause you there too, because something you just said, you're talking about, I want to have something I can be proud of myself for besides just the internal work. And this is something that self-love books don't always hit, which drives me crazy. Because for me, I remember when I was in high school and I hated myself so much. And I was homeschooled and I'd been in a horrible car wreck. And so mostly I just laid every day. I was high on painkillers accidentally. It wasn't like a fun high. I didn't enjoy it, but, and I wasn't doing much. And I remember trying the journey of self-love, like the beliefs, like I love myself and I'm kind, blah, blah, blah. But like when you actually are doing things to be proud of, it helps. Like there's one thing to say the declarations and to be kind to yourself. And there's another thing to do, even if it's a little thing like making your bed.
Yeah.
Having an action you can be proud of creates alignment inside of you to love yourself more.
It's almost like a hook to hang on the aspiration of like, or whatever your affirmation of like, oh yeah, I am proud of myself because I made my bed.
Yes.
And what I noticed though, at that point, which I like coach people, I'm a habit coach, so I coach them too, is that you can be proud of yourself for a little bit, like 4 or 5 days, but then the but starts to creep in. You're like, but I should have done this years ago, but I should be doing more. And then it's like the opposite of celebrating, where you then lose your happy, like victory that you just got. So I like the interesting part though, if you expect it, you can go after it and be like, nope, I'm actually proud of this.
That's coming.
Good job, me. Yeah. I had this win. I'll look for other wins when I have, but right now I'm just like dialing this in. And then eventually I moved to, but it was interesting because I just was going after environment. Because I think most people think of habits as environment, like fitness, I would say nutrition, nutrition,
finance,
and then house. That would be the most. But I think in the habits journey, even just starting with thoughts being habitual, like that was brilliant to me. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then, so then I was like, I want to actually feel a win. I didn't choose another habit in my room because I wanted to feel a win somewhere else. So then I chose my kitchen and I just ran my dishwasher every night. But
That's awesome.
The cool part about it being so small is like, you define it's supposed to be 5 minutes or less, like your habit. So it takes motivation out. So you could do it regardless. You no excuses. So some nights just running my dishwasher was actually success, like breaking out, not having it, running it full, not doing all my dishes.
Right. You're like, I don't have the time to put them all in there.
Nope.
But I can hit the button.
Yes. So it was like whatever was in there. And it was cool because as I started doing that, there's just the natural momentum that happens because you're like, I'm investing. And also too, every time you do it, it's like a vote for that person, the aspiration you're doing. Like this is a vote towards becoming the kind of person that mine was keep and maintain peaceful environments. And I specifically wrote out why they're important to me. Like I kind of more tied to my identity for each thing I went after.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then it got to the point where I would like load my dishes because I had the time and I knew it would feel good. And I could see all the benefits. I was like, I can do that, but I would just keep it as a win. Not like bonus points. Like the habit still is just
the habit
basic.
is just
running the dishwasher.
But if I do more, yay me.
And you're like, I really like the yay me feeling. So then it grows. I call it at that point, like you're ready to upgrade. So it's like, oh, but the temptation is to do it too fast. So some of my most
So then you try to change everything at once and it short circuits you.
Exactly. And you're like, okay, go back to square one, go back to just running the dishwasher. So then eventually it went to like, I could do all the dishes that are in the sink. And then load it. So it was fuller most days. And then it was like, I could clear off the dishes on the tables and then wash them. And then it was cool because this was like a couple months
I just want to say this. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you so much. This is 2 ADD people talking, but
it was going to be great.
But this is like the secret of how I've changed everything in my life.
I was wondering because Justin was so wired with order and you were not, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was horrible. But I mean, like I changed everything, even from like being a depressed person to not being a depressed person, came from very little habits that like slowly. And I did the exact same thing. I didn't know to do this. I just knew if it's not small enough, I'll get defeated.
Yeah.
And I need to and I was like, I might be the slowest person to change a habit, but then I'll change it for good.
Yeah.
Because I just but that thing of celebrating little things, only having them be little enough that you can actually maintain them, and having vision for this might take a little bit of time, but that's okay because I'm going to be kind to myself while I do it. But transformation is one, like if you summed up transformation, it is do the next thing, do one next thing. That one little thing becomes one other little thing becomes one other little thing. And it's like a snowball is the best example for transformation. Like you took your bed and then you took the dishes and it was like a little bit of snow. And then you started rolling it until it became like a ginormous snowman.
That's so true. I think part of it, like you're saying too, is like honoring your capacity because I think we like, it's so funny how our ego tries to sneak in where we're like, this is what we should be doing, or this is what change will get you. Or even like, it's not enough. That's too small. Like, are you lazy? It's funny. Are you like, I want to make a change and then I'm shaming myself for my attempts at change. But like, we want longevity. I always think like, I like the big results fast or trying big action fast gets you flash in the pan success. But if you want to change the kind of person you are, you have to go like, I'm looking to be a different person. I'm not looking to like make my bed for 2 months, you know?
That's so good.
Well, you just said that. I was summarizing what you said.
Well, I was just summarizing what you said. I was
just a big summary.
Reiterating it because I like you keep saying things that are so good that I'm like, I don't want people to go past that because that was really a good nugget. So keep going with those nuggets.
Well, then the cool part is I think the dishwasher, so I was starting to do some other ones too, led to like the realization of, I want to include my kids. So, but at this point, and I have 3 kids and they were at this point 8, 5, and 2. And I had started realizing like, I had never tried chores because I was like, if mom can't tell herself what to do, there's no hope for me telling the little ones around here because they have a lot more emotions and I can't handle it. So
totally.
So I never even bought a chore. I was like, it was a joke. My friends would have these beautiful ones and be like, do you want the link? I was like, for who? I'm gonna just be some artwork. I'll take the whiteboard, but not if it's a chore chart. So then I was like, but one of the things I realized is like, the cost of not like having chores for the kids was like, it was doing them a disservice. Like I actually want them to be adults that can take care of themselves, can do all the things, but then also like not have to learn what I'm learning.
Yeah.
At 35.
30. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I actually can like, so
I wish my parents would have taught me 100%.
It's funny because I mean like I had chores, but it was like boom or bust. It wasn't consistent. It wasn't kindness or reminding. It was like, clean the whole house this day. I'll be back from work. And then it was like, if you did, you'd get it checked with like a white rag. And if it wasn't good enough, it'd be, so there just wasn't, I was like, consistency and small. So then with the dishwasher, I was like.
Also that environment taught you it's very high stakes. So you probably spent your whole life avoiding cleaning.
Do you want, I actually know a little bit more. I've done some digging recently. I realized that from my childhood, one of the reasons I had an absence of structure or habits, my personality, yes, but it was also a response to how I was raised, is that I grew up seeing structure and control kill connection. They're more important and more valued. Therefore, I kind of made an oath, which now seems silly, but it's subconscious, that all structure and all habits will kill connection.
Yes.
So it's like you have to choose between structure or connection. So then like I chose connection my whole life. But then I think the secret sauce that I found after benefiting from habits for a little bit was realizing that, I was minimizing the cost, that I was living with no structure. The amount of chaos that I was living in actually stole from connection. Yes. So there's this like sweet spot of like enough for whatever your values is. And I also think that's interesting about habits. Like they're so personal. They are not ride and die, one size fits all. It needs to be benefiting your life and your personality and your family and your season.
Yes.
That you can find consistency that is seasonal too. I'm like, so anyways, but like realizing like enough structure. So structure and connection are not at odds with each other was a big leap for me. And then I was like, okay. So then what I realized about the structure is that like, if I'm not constantly fighting fires and managing chaos, I can then, because I automate the more mundane things like the laundry and my bed and our car cleaning, I get to give my kids and my husband and my friends my best energy rather than whatever's the most urgent getting my energy.
Yes.
Where I feel like I took back control of my energy flow of like, and I don't mean like energy, I mean like when I'm the happiest and not tired or
Totally.
So I'm like, parts of the day. So that was huge for me. So anyways, with the kids, I then invited them. I was like, I changed my gear around chores because I think a lot of times like, it's not going to be quicker. It's going to take more effort. And I was like, no, actually like a boss who's training, my like long-term vision is that I want them to be teenagers who can actually help and make things quicker for me. So I have to chain them at 3 and 5 how to do that so we get there, because I'm going to do little bits of better. I'm going to have the same expectations. So it just started with them. They each unload one part of their dishwasher, and knowing that like it's going to take a while, it's going to be, but it's worth it because I'm investing in the kind of adult I want you to be. And I'm also okay, like the expectation that they'll be a little prickly about it because I'm a little prickly. But I'm like, oh wait, when I do new things, like you're just saying all the things I feel. So I'm okay. Like I'm not going to get dysregulated, especially if I anticipate it. I'm like, I'm not going to get dysregulated because I know. I'm like, oh no, I missed what we're doing. And it's cool because now like my kids, well, one, I just wanted them to like start with chores, but now like it's shocking them. It's changed our family culture. There's this expectation because I've invited, they have more chores. We do things as a family, but I also now see it as a chance for connection rather than just like a task that we're checking off, because they help each other. They'll turn on like music and do dance parties together. It's most often like, because the leaning into celebration, I always let them choose a song in our, like after they finish their dishes, and we do like a little dance party. So then it's fun. Oh, it's so fun. And then my son will be like, can I do another chore so I can get a dance party? I was like, I'll just give you a dance party.
That's so sweet.
And then they help each other, like things that I didn't impose. I'm like, oh, out of them being proud of themselves and learning that they contribute, and actually an awareness of the footprint of like what it takes to run a house, then they're helping each other. So like my 3-year-old the other day, when my 9-year-old was having a meltdown, was like, did her dishes without us asking, because he was like, I knew you were sad, Audrey, so I did it for you. And I was like, okay, this is why it's worth it. And but then I also remember that moment for the next 7 days when it's like challenging and everyone's grumpy. And I'm like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. Like I have to keep the benefit in the forefront. So when the cost arises, I'm like, nope, I'm raising children. So my why is something like, I'm raising kids, or I'm on a journey to raise kids that are contributing and are can help themselves, whatever, something like that. And like generous with their efforts.
Which another thing that you're saying is keeping the benefit in front of you, because, so I say this all the time, that you won't change until the cost of staying the same is worse than the cost of change. And so you have to decide that the change you want it's more painful to not do it. So like you being like, I want to create kids who can contribute and understand their life. Like they're going to be able to understand how to create a tidy environment because they learned step by step as a kid. And so you're going to be able to see them become the adults that you want. So you're keeping in front of you the reward, which is helping your brain remember the thing I get out of this is better than the pain of doing it.
I literally just typed this out in my journal. Like 2 days ago, I was saying that I realized that one of the big changes for me is like what you're saying, the cost of the effort now to do my habit will, like, I have to remember that I'll benefit, like I'll experience the benefit 5-fold. Yeah. So I think a lot of times people maybe with habits have had a 1-to-1 ratio. So they think like, oh, the cost isn't worth the outcome. But I'm like, now that I know more about like the components of a habit, I'm like, you have the wrong habit. You need to scale it back. Maybe you need to change a different one, a different time. You need a tool, or like
if that one habit isn't reaping a good reward,
it's not universal to
the right habit.
Yes, exactly. Like you need to, it's like you have the wrong tool for what your life needs right now. It's not that, it's not a universal truth about habits. It's just, you got the wrong tool. Yeah. So like, I always think there should be a 1 to 5 return on your investment. So the effort I put into a habit, I should reap 5 times the benefit, like in efficiency and buying back time, all the things. So like you're saying, I realized how often I disassociated from the benefit. And literally there's almost like this fear of how much it was going to cost me. I was like, this because a lot of what it like subtly comes in is it worth it? What's the point? Those are the those are the ones that like poke your motivation balloon and just deflate it. You're like, oh, it's not worth it. So one of the things I do now, like my most big cost habit, is I meal prep for a couple hours on Monday. It's like 3 hours.
That's a lot.
And inevitably, like an hour in, I'm like looking around my kitchen. Yeah. And I'm like, I have like freaking 2 hours left. And is this even worth it?
Totally.
So now I have made this practice of like stopping and remembering the last time I benefited from my effort. So I'll just go back to the week before and think of all the lunches that I was able to grab without pre-thought at 8 a.m. so that I could eat at noon. And I actually got to eat at noon at the park across the street from my meeting because I wasn't spending that 30 minutes finding a meal. It saved me in budget. These are actually, I'm a way better cook than most of Redding's resources. 100%. So I just sit in the moment a little bit of kind of like calling back the benefits that I'm like, oh yeah, this is cost. You are $1, reward, you are $5. I will continue forward.
One of the things, and actually, I don't want to derail your story, but I am. Maybe you could talk about, I remember you sharing the cool thing is follow Jenna on Instagram. She's at Jenna Zint.
Yeah.
I don't know.
JENNAZINT.
Yeah. Because I love watching the day to day, and she's so good at sharing her life through social media. And we'll also give you her email because she's a great habits coach. Some of you out there are like, I already feel overwhelmed by the amount of things she changed in her life, but she did it in such small steps that it's very doable. I think if Jenna can change her life, anybody.
I have half the people come there like, I got hope because I knew how bad it was. And I was like, it's true.
It's true.
I was
You
the
were
worst
a
case
billboard.
scenario.
Yes. But I remember you had a bedtime routine you were trying to get your kids to do.
Yes.
And then you decided that wasn't worth it and you changed it.
Yes.
Do you want to share that story?
Yeah.
'Cause
Good memory.
It's the idea of the payoff for the pain isn't worth it. So how do I find something that does work?
It was funny too, because when you learn the little bits of better, and then inevitably everybody, like on your 6th habit, you try it, you go for like a 30-minute one and then it fails. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, I knew better than this. So we
all those competitive people out there, they get like one habit in and they're like, I can do everything.
Oh gosh, that's so real too. So we tried to I was like, okay, what should bedtime? We want like connection. We want them to meet Jesus because that's what you do. And then we want, them to learn and read and have almost like a kumbaya experience every day as a family. So we constructed this 30-minute time for it. And I was like, boom, boom, boom. We like check all the boxes, and it was terrible. And at one point I remember and we tried I tried some of my tools of like, okay, the Jesus element in here, is it working? I should swap out another one. Not saying that,
Sure.
whatever. And I remember at one point my 8-year-old was like, we were listening to some word, like trying to soak. Like, what do you see Jesus giving you? And she was like, I hate Jesus. I hate worship music. I'm like, and then I was like, my kids are going to be Satanists. This is terrible. But it did it's so crazy. The emotions, I think like listening to the emotions, like, oh, that's not true. Okay. I have the wrong tool. I'm trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole right now. I need to go back to the drawing board. So we actually scaled it way back. And what we landed on is there's this TV show called Bluey on Disney, and it's epic, but it's 8 minutes. So what I realized, I was like, okay, I want to find something that motivates the kids, because it felt like us pushing the kids through the routine versus them like wanting to go through it. So I was like, what reward would work for us and not like blow our bedtime routine out of the water? So anyways, we just watch an 8-minute Bluey episode. So they get their pajamas on, which was like shifted everything.
Yep.
They brushed their teeth, which shifted everything. They're also responsible for putting their own dirty clothes in our laundry hamper, because that's a huge component. Like when you get the habits like up and running, they almost remind me of this mastermind where they all overlap. And if one gets missed, the ramifications.
All the others.
But then it's great because then I know the benefit, like the cost of that. I know the benefits like tenfold versus like, oh, okay, that's worth me getting out of bed to run the dishwasher because they're not going to do the chores. And then I'm not going to be able to like finish my meal prepping chore, like all the things. But anyway, so they have to do that. And then they meet us all in our bed for one 8-minute episode. And then we go and lay with them afterward. And it's changed everything. It went from a dread to like this sweet time. And now we go to bed feeling connected. Like we rarely... Well, last time we got some grumpiness, but it was so helpful. And then I just realized, like, I think sometimes when you change your habits or scale back, you think that you're giving yourself permission to like never do that. But I'm like, oh, it's on a journey. So I just realized I was like, I could break out the Jesus piece and it doesn't have to live at bedtime. If bedtime's hard for us already, adding something like that's going to be challenging. So now our Jesus habit is in the morning or different points where we're like different, and it's changed it all. So I think giving myself permission, even like in the breaking apart the 30-minute and just taking like 2, it doesn't mean I'm going to never work on the other 4 that I left, where I think you feel that way. You feel like I'm giving myself permission to, no, I just can't figure it all at once. Not now doesn't mean not ever. And also I've rebuilt trust with myself that I can go on a solution. So I think at that point I started asking people what they did for their Jesus kid habits. And I found, I ordered some devotionals, and that was cool too, even with the expectation of iteration with habits versus like, if I pick one and I fail at it, it means
I'm bad.
Yes.
And I can't do it and I'll never get there.
See, I have no discipline. See, I have no self-control.
And see, I can't be a good parent. And see,
my kids will never know Jesus.
Yes.
It's hopeless.
Totally.
It's so true. So then like, because I knew that it wasn't going to like probably be instant. Oh, I actually heard this great analogy once, that the expectation that you would construct a habit and it would be a great fit and do all the benefits you're expecting with the effort you're expecting, like a little bit of effort, 5 times the benefit. would be like ordering a pair of shoes off of Amazon that you expect to be your everyday shoes that will be fancy enough, casual enough, comfortable enough, the right color to go with all your outfits, the right stylish, but not to look grandma-y, but not to be too edgy. And then they would be a perfect fit. And you never tried them on.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course we would laugh at that, but that's what I feel about habits now. Like I have the expectation it's going to be a process. There's going to be ones returned. If I could get this in a wide, can I get this in black? You know, like the idea. So anyways, with going on the Jesus habit for the kids, I found this YouTube Saddleback Kids has like a ton. They make a new one every week. And it's almost like a 20-minute. There's a little bit of worship. There's a Bible scripture memory. There's like an actual cartoon. And then there's like some almost like a YouTube element at the end. But they all like, so then I put it in. I was like, is this cheating? Like, can I use this screen as a Jesus time? But it's so cool, Abby, because I was willing to think outside the box. And then also the idea of like, not only iterations, but I can test drive this and I don't have to commit to forever.
No.
If this doesn't work,
we'll throw it out.
Yeah. Like we'll try something else. Or if there's bad side effects that I didn't see coming, I can't see the future. I can only like let it play out and then collect data, decide what I'm going to do with it, and then make an adjustment. So anyways, my kids actually all ended up getting baptized from watching the Saddleback Kids because they had this awareness of that's an expression once you've given your life to the Lord of your, and then, so then my youngest got saved as well. And then fast forward, like, it's just been cool watching like, oh, I had judged this as the lazy mom Jesus button. And I do, like, by now we've had a few other options for Jesus, but like, I was like, oh, this could actually work. But if I hadn't been willing to be creative, I'd be fighting through the really dry devotional that I was reading at night while everyone was crying. And no one, but with this one, because I was willing to pivot, they like got baptized. And then too, this fall, all of our bikes got stolen. It was like $2,000 worth of bikes. And I love riding bikes and ride often. Yeah. I literally cried. And then I came back inside because my 9-year-old's birthday bike had been stolen 2 weeks after she got it. And I was scared. I was nervous to tell her because I was like, of course. I feel big things and you're going to feel big things.
Totally.
This house is going to go. So then, anyways, I told her and she looked at me and she thought about it for a minute and she goes, you know what, Mom, this is just like Job. What I was watching the other day, she was like, the devil stole it, but this means we're going to get better bikes. And then she started chanting, better bikes. And then we totally did. We got all got upgrades a couple months later. But the fact that she went there so fast, I was like, oh my gosh, here I was judging this tool, but it actually has been so fruitful.
I love that. So one of the things, why don't we go ahead and like, we're running out of time to be able to go through all of the things. Why don't you give like a rundown of like now where your habits are at and what your lifestyle looks like now? Like the things that you feel like have really like now, I mean, cause I went over to your house the other night and your entire house was clean.
Yeah.
Like clean. And that's been like the last several times I've gone over to your house, which is like you said, a miracle from the beginning. So what are your, and you meal prep every week? Like where does your life look like? What does it look like now? Okay.
My house is normally pretty clean. The interesting part in getting to the clean, there's like a journey. I want to make a graph of the emotions as someone who goes from no habits to habits. Because at some point I got a little too controlling and I was like, oh, it has to stay perfect. But with small children, I was like, oh, actually, no, room for connection still can be true. Yes. So I don't make it be perfect because I actually want life to happen, you know? Yes. So the cool part is my laundry doesn't overwhelm me. It actually, we usually do it with a family movie on Friday. I have like 7, I wrote it the other day because I teach a habit like school, like a 3-month course. And I let them Q&A, like what different habits. So I wrote it out. It was like 3 pages. I was like, oh, I didn't realize the layers of this that contribute. Yeah. They're all keys to the success. But like to have laundry not feel overwhelming, always be put away or waiting for me, never out. I'm like, oh, I got my house
miracle.
Back. Yeah. And then my dishes are always put away because we'd run our dishwasher every night. And then bed, my room's mainly clean. The kids, I vacuum for the last 5 months. I've because one of the things I want to do is have a cleaner car. I vacuum it once a week. Actually, the other day I teased. It feels like I'm investing in my future habits because I only had a 20 for the car wash coins because I get them back from my vacuum. And I was like, okay, this 20 more habits. Here we go. Buying them up front.
That's funny.
So anyways, and then I'm on day like I think 280 of working out 30 minutes a day, which is so cool. Oh, I'm reading my Bible through in a year, which is crazy to me. It's actually, my marriage has changed too. So I started this morning routine, which I was like an avid night owl. And I realized that one of the kickers for me was that all my unhelpful habits lived at night, like coping mechanisms, like the junk food. It was like I was crawling through surviving my day.
Food.
Yes, junk food, Netflix binging when I wasn't really connecting with my husband. And I was labeling all these things like rest, but really I was like, they were my survival to get to through my day. It's like, they're not actually rest. They're just like, I deserve this.
Yes.
Another whatever it was in my mouth. Anyway, so then I was like, what kind of breakthrough could I potentially get just using the same hours of rest? Like, I don't have to give it rest because it felt really emotional. I always watch too, whenever I feel like an area I want to dive in next and like kind of see some renovation. If I have high emotions, then I'm like, I need to do that work first. So I just realized that I was afraid.
Do the emotional work.
Yep.
Before you
like,
change
what do
the
I
habit.
like? Look at my beliefs. What am I believing to be true about this? So I was afraid that if I got up early and went to bed like relatively normal hours instead of late, I was going to give up rest and like my refresh time.
Yeah.
And then I just went on this like, so I was like, maybe if I can find that in the morning, let's see. And then I gave myself like a couple weeks to like, you can practice or you can try, do an experiment. If you don't like it, you can go back. That's not failing. Cause you almost have to tell yourself you're not going to beat yourself up.
Yes.
Cause otherwise, can I trust you or are you going to be really mean in 3 weeks if I want to go back?
Yes.
So then did it. Found so much life. And I just made this like little bottled morning routine that I do. But part of it was like chatting with Jesus, which actually I wasn't ready to chat with Jesus at first. Cause I was like, that sounds so religious and blah, blah, blah. So I listened to my Enneagram song for like months and I would read the lyrics and I would just cry. Cause I was like, that's me. That's true. But then I feel like a little bit of like a tingle of Jesus because of my emotions and he just naturally kind of comfort me. And I was like, oh, and then I would do 5 minutes of exercise, but then eventually that led to the 30-minute habit. And then it led to me reading my Bible for 5 minutes, which at first was offensive because I was like, I'm listening to a Christian book now and it's like, 30 minutes isn't enough for Jesus, blah, blah, blah. But I was in my class the other day, one of the girls was like, she's like, I know it's just 5 minutes and I started to feel bad, but she was like, 5 minutes is better than no minutes, which is what I've done the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
That's true. And then I started seeing how much I was like quoting scripture and I was like, okay, 5 minutes actually isn't worth nothing. Like it's making me, it's almost like starting my day thinking in the mode versus like, oh, where's Jesus at 3 p.m.? Darn it, I forgot you again. Sorry, I left you back in my closet. But
right.
Yes, that has been a really big deal. And then like that led to me like, oh, I actually want to read the Bible through, which I just never have. So then knowing too, like now I know when something feels big and hard, I gather friends because there's like a social contract and accountability. So whenever I'm doing something that's going to be hard, I'm like, what friends want to do this with me? Yeah.
Who wants to empty their dishwasher in the morning with me?
Be like, please, that's my children. No, I thought that's why I included them because it was like a social contract.
It's true.
They are aware and they mom shame me if I don't do my chore. One time they're like, we can't do our chore if you don't do your chore first. I know.
That is so funny.
So I got some friends to read the Bible through and it feels so life-giving. That's the crazy part. Is I want to do it.
Fun and connection, not something you have to do.
Yeah.
And you found a way to do it for enough time that it doesn't feel like I'm just doing this because I should. It's like it's small enough time that you want to, and then you're seeing that you enjoy it.
Yeah. And then too, like we were saying before, before I read my Bible in the mornings, which
I don't want to skip over that you gave yourself, because I think this is a really important part of discipline, is that you gave yourself enough time where you didn't do it just because you should. Like you're like, I just listened to my Enneagram song.
Yeah.
I just did. The should in my head said I should be spending time with God right now, but I didn't want to. So I didn't, but I did have a connection point, and then that slowly transforming. I just think that's an important thing because I know I grew up in a church where discipline about religion feels horrible. And so even now when people are like, even now hearing read your Bible for 5 minutes every day, I literally feel like a reaction to in my own body of like, oh God, no, don't tell me what I have to do about God for how many minutes.
Yeah.
But the flip side is when you break it down and you're doing it because you see like it's actually benefiting you, which is what I've seen from you, is you've actually become really tender and you felt like a lot of like connection and sweetness in your relationship with God from doing this, not like you've become robotic to do the things that you think you should.
Longevity does not live there. When you're shooting yourself into change, there's like a matter of time before there's an expiration date.
Yes.
And you're where I'm like, oh, so like even my Jesus stuff started like, again, secular songs that I could feel or then when I was supposed to be praying and I couldn't pray, it'd just be things that I was thankful for and gratitude. And a lot of times it was not necessarily Jesus, but it was like my husband's awesome. But then the cool part is in that some relationship habits too, where I was like, oh, when I remind myself that he's a good man, I'm not not engaging with defensiveness when we're in a disagreement is so much easier because I'll just be like, oh, he's a good man. And it just kind of is this shift of like, see him through that lens versus collecting evidence for why he's wrong. He's not, I'm not the victim here. His heart is for me and I'm going to choose my heart to be for him too.
Totally.
But even so, my God was like, I love my house. Thanks for my pool.
Yes.
But then it really did change and shift. And like, it's shocking to see how much, if you don't follow your shoulds, I always think follow your lead, follow the momentum, follow the little slack that you have. Don't push yourself up the hardest hill, but it'll lead to more. It also reminds me, you said the snowball. What I think of sometimes is like all the Dave Ramsey things where it's like, if you didn't pay a $500 car payment, you'd have, and you invested it, you'd have $1.5 million in 20 years. But what he's counting on is compound interest, which that's where the magic of habits lies, is it's a little bit of a vote until it's like takes off. So you're not saying that $500 for 20 years will add up to that. Right. You're not factoring in compound interest, which I think is what most people don't factor in
with habits
when they think, So I think of my first micro habit. I say it needs to be offensively small because it's an ego hit because your ego will be like, but you could, or what you should really do. And then I also call it a habit seed because I'm like, this isn't where I'm going to land or forever.
This is just the thing we build from.
Yes. I'm mastering the art of showing up first. That's the only purpose right now. We'll go next and we'll have an upgrade and then we'll upgrade some more. But like, I have to do this step before I can upgrade.
Yeah. Are there any other ways that you felt like it changed your marriage before we?
Gosh, one of the things, that's what I was going to start with. And I forgot. Was in my morning routine, I started processing my emotions a lot more on a daily basis. And it went from like, I think so many people in our
like you actually connected
culture
with yourself,
but on a daily basis too. Cause it was like, I realized I would do it when I'd feel strong enough. It reminds me of like putting something in the junk drawer one piece at a time. And then when you can't close the junk drawer anymore, you actually have to deal with it. And that's what I would do with my emotions where I'm like, okay, I'm clearly feeling things from probably the last 3 weeks. I should take some time. And then it'd be like, an hour and all the things. So mine was just like a 3-minute habit where I'd like check the last time I had pain in the last 24 hours and then process through it. But then the cool part is like, it just led to like, you know this too, like the more self-compassion and empathy you have for yourself, the more you can give away. So as I became more acquainted with my pain and was kinder, I was kinder and could hear my husband's pain more and then would respond out of tenderness, not try to solve the logistics, or engage with like, anger. It'd be like, oh, I hear someone who's like feeling sad or lonely under there because I can recognize lonely because I'm now acquainted with what lonely feels like.
When you have space for your own emotions, you can give other people space.
Yeah,
it's like a natural. But when you like run over your own emotions with busyness, then you want to run over theirs as well,
and you don't even recognize it.
Subconscious.
Yeah, it's so. It almost reminds me. Because, anyways, it's like primary, like the colors, like when with my 3-year-old, we're practicing with flashcards and he's like, purple, blue, and then as an adult, when you see a purple or blue card, you don't think that. But I feel like we all have to go through the flashcard stage of emotion before you can like be this like, oh, now I just see emotion everywhere.
Right.
And cannot engage with offense. So I think I've made crazy strides actually in self-control as I've made room for my emotion, because then I can feel it and then choose what I do with it. Like I've widened the gap between the stimulus and my reaction. Yeah. Yeah. I read Viktor Frankl's, it's so good about how it's something around the lines, like his quote, he was a psychiatrist who was in the Holocaust camp and he was able to keep his joy. And he talks about it very like what he was going through and what was in his mind when he talks about it. But he's like, in between the stimulus and the reaction is a space. And that space is where man's greatest freedom lies. And it's your ability to choose your reaction and your response. I'm sorry. And that's where our responsibility lies. And there's just level of conviction that if he could choose happy, regardless of what the Nazis were doing, like they took away all his food, clothes, all the things. It's like, oh, when my husband says something a little more pointedly, like I still get to choose me. Like it almost made me radically take on like my awareness of my emotions and I'm like, what am I going to do about it? I'm not at the mercy of my emotions anymore. I can feel them. I'm not going to disengage, but now I'm going to choose how I want to respond instead of just reacting. So it's so interesting. I grew a lot of self-control in getting in touch with my emotions, which almost sounds counterintuitive. You think they
Totally.
grow and you become more emotional,
Right.
but you're like, no, actually, I'm familiar, so I can decide what I'm going to do with you when you
Navigate it.
pop up. Yeah.
Yes. I feel like one of the things that I would say from watching the journey from the outside is like you went through like a personal revival. You went into a lot of your pain, and from it, you began to change your life in ways that changed your marriage, changed your kids, changed your ability to enjoy life, you've worked out and eaten more healthy than you have ever before.
Yeah.
And you really went from being somebody who would not have been known for any skills and discipline.
Yeah. It's so true.
To being somebody who is disciplined, but not dominated by that.
Yeah.
And I think
Thanks,
that's a hard balance to find. So one of the things I wanted to do, we kind of have to crush on this. I wish we could talk for hours, honestly, about this. But one of the things that I was thinking is,
can I tell you one thing real quick?
Yeah.
One of the mantras that came out, because I like in working out what I was telling myself, I would just kind of dig what's under it. So one of my like governors for myself in the journey is I'm learning to become someone who is purpose driven, not simply pleasure seeking, and realizing that there's like another one was like, if for self-control,
which
is a fruit of the
especially
spirit.
as a 7,
yeah.
that's important because they are like pleasure seeking.
And it's
to the
cool
core.
because in it, I'm not saying pleasure's bad.
Nope.
I'm just saying it might not be the highest thing to build all of the things around in your
Yep.
life. And then maybe there's a simplicity to pleasure. So it's allowed when it's appropriate, but maybe it's been lying to me that it's the best thing to build my life around. And then the other thing is the self-control. Like I think I would like go through the fruits of the spirit, like self-control. that sounds like asparagus.
Yeah, totally.
But then at one point, I'll never forget, I was on the walk with the Lord, and the Lord was like, if it's labeled a fruit of the spirit, there has to be a sweetness that you don't know about it yet. So would you be willing to go on? So for a while, one of my things was I'm on a journey to learn the sweetness of self-control.
I love that so much. It's a hidden fruit in today's society.
It is.
Honestly, like I think self-control has no wrap here, and it is a beautiful, sweet thing, and honestly gives me so much reward. But okay, so some of you are listening and you feel a little bit overwhelmed because the concept of changing your life feels overwhelming. And I know for me, every area that I needed to change, I had so many emotions about that area that I couldn't do it on my own. I actually needed somebody to help me break down the steps. Like in cleaning a kitchen, I had so many emotions from my childhood, which makes sense if you know my story, but I needed somebody to come help me. Like how do I break this down? How do I do this? And so I love what you're doing. You're doing habits coaching.
Yeah. And
if you're out there and you need help, this feels overwhelming to you, but you would like to see areas in your life transform. Because this is one of the most beautiful ways you can do it is to take ownership for your life and learn the mind habits and the thoughts and the beliefs and the emotions that you need to be able to actually walk out change. I love you've studied human change and what you need for that. So how can they be coached by you or join your habit stuff that you do?
Yeah. I should have succinctly thought this out before. I think following me on Instagram is the easiest. And then my husband and I have a website, zintsquad.com. That would probably be the second. Yeah. Zint Squad. Someone was like, Zint Quads? Are you very proud of your quads? I mean, I am, but that I do. So I do one-on-one. I love though, we do group coaching. We do virtual and in person, but it's every 3 months. So currently I'm not open, but I'm sure if you're listening to this, you should go check because.
And you can also get on the waiting list for the next one.
This is true. You're way better at this. I'm like, I'm not open. You're like trying to help me. And I'm like,
no, you have a waiting list.
I do have a waiting list. Thanks to Abby.
Yes. Yeah. So get on the waiting list
because
now.
There's actually something about the accountability. That's why I think it's fun too. The group versus just the one-on-one is like you're doing it together, you're showing up. And then also there's an element which most people don't expect, but in habits, in creativity, because it's rarely the straightforward option that you think is going to solve your problem. A habit's going to be, so people they'll like listen to what's been working. Other people's like, I'm going to steal your habit. And then they come back next week and like, oh my gosh, it was so much better than my habit. Thank you for the idea. So like the creativity and then like mastermindiness is like really fun. So
And it's helpful to be with other people when they're like, I couldn't do it. And you're like, I couldn't either. And you feel better about your life. And
you're like, I engaged the curiosity instead of contempt though. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay. Find her, do this. Follow, even if you just follow her for inspiration. I know that I've watched it and it feels fun getting to watch somebody who's honest and vulnerable about where they're at in life and not trying to pretend that they're better than they are. And also let you in on the wins and let you see what's working and doesn't work. It's really inspiring and refreshing. So
I was giggling. I was like, yeah, I have a strategy. It's that. Or it's just post because my kids do crap. Like, that's funny too.
Yeah. So thanks for being here.
Thanks,
and we'll see you guys soon. Oh, also, I guess I should say this last thing.
Oh, surprise.
Which is, if you also need help with the compassion, we have the Compassion Project. Since we talked about your need for compassion as well, it's available all the time because it's an evergreen course. You can go to justinandabby.com. If you were impacted by this course, share it with pretty much every mom needs.
Yeah.
Did I say course? I meant podcast. My brain is
Oh.
not following all the things. But if you were impacted by this podcast, go ahead and
share. Oh.
If you were impacted by this podcast, it'd be great to share. Share with all your mom friends, share with all your dad friends, share with all your people who feel overwhelmed, share with all the people that are crying because their laundry is too much for them.
Yeah.
Share because the most hopeless feeling is not knowing how to get out. And the medicine to your soul can be having somebody who will literally walk with you step by step to get to the other side of the thing that's defeating you. And there's no one out there that doesn't have the capacity to grow and actually face little by little the mountain that they're facing. So do it, share it, do it with your friends. We love you all. Talk to you later.